Welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate you guys very much for stopping by. So as you guys know, we got the Superbet polling going on right now. The Rapid and Blitz. And, I did change my chess legend down here. So we have Siegbert Tarash. He played for the World Championship in 1908. He played Emanuel Lasker, but at that time, Emanuel Lasker was just too strong, man. He was a world champion for 27 years. Imagine that. We haven't seen nothing like that in recent history, man. But anyways, so I did go ahead and grab the round 5 game that they played today between Wesley and Kirill Shevchenko. And so I have quite a few languages to speak. So, of course, all my people in the Philippines, I will say mabuhay to you. Kamusta na aking mga kaibigan? Let me see. Magandang, it is morning, afternoon, actually. So, magandang hapon. I appreciate you guys very much for stopping by. Anybody who is coming from Romania, I will say Bună dimineața and mulțumesc. I appreciate you guys very much for stopping by. And Kirill Shevchenko is originally from Ukraine and represented Ukraine till this year. So I will say привет and spasibi. I appreciate you guys very much. If you guys are ready to go, son, let's take a look and see what we got for this game, homie. So we got E4. As Bobby Fischer said, best by test. We got C5, so we have the Sicilian defense. This is definitely one of the strongest ways to play against E4. And it is the reason that a lot of people switch from E4 to D4 because they don't feel like dealing with the Sicilian. We got knight to F3, we got D6, all very standard, regular stuff. We got bishop to B5 check, one of the strongest moves. Then we do have knight to D7, we got D4, breaking the position open, pawn takes D4, and then we have queen takes D4, which is actually one of the top moves. It might look kind of strange, but the knight does not have the ability to come down to C6, so you're not really getting an attack on the queen like you normally would. So we do have A6, we got bishop down to E2, knight G goes to F6, we got castles by white, we got the move E5, just knocking the queen somewhere, queen goes back to E3. We got knight C5, knight to C3. So, all standard stuff, pieces being, developed and things like that. And we do have a nice little bit of pressure on this pawn here, though. So you got to be a little bit careful. So we got knight down to G4. We got queen to D2. And then we have the knight retreating back to F6 to place the pressure, like I said before, on this pawn. We do see rook down to D1. We got bishop to E7. And then we have the novelty of the game, which is queen E1. And queen E1 is actually a little bit sneaky. I don't know if you guys can see why it's sneaky. Oops, what did I do? Oh, okay. I hit the backward button. At least I didn't hit like the go to the end button. Yeah, so it's a little bit of a sneaky move. So what we actually see in the game is queen to C7. This is very nicely timed move because if we go back, some of you guys that are looking at the position might be like, okay, we were just talking about the E4 pawn, but I got 2 knights on it and only 1 knight is protecting. So can't I just win a pawn here? Well, you actually can't win a pawn because white is going to be able to get their pawn back. If we did see knight taking E4, knight taking E4, knight taking E4, this D pawn is pinned on D6 because of this rook on D1. So we would be seeing knight taking E5 and everything is pretty even. Except for the fact that you do have a pretty weak isolated pawn on the D file, and that's not really what you want. So it's definitely a little bit better for white to play this. So, like I said, we did see, Shevchenko says, hey, man, I see what you're trying to do here. So he does make the move queen to C7. We got knight down to D2. Because now that black has sidestepped away from that threat, now we do have to defend the pawn on E4. We got B5, B4. Knight goes back to E6. We got knight to B3. Bishop goes to B7. Bishop goes to B7. Double attacking that pawn. So you see that what black is doing is they are trying to either get the pawn. They're trying to also push the move D5. That is definitely some ideas in the position for black. And so white just says, I'm going to go ahead and just plop a knight into D5. So we got knight taking D5, pawn taking D5, knight going down to F4. And there really isn't a great way, you can actually probably go bishop to F3. That's definitely a move. But this is how, Wesley So decides to defend it by doing this. There was also bishop to F3 as well. We got pawn taking F4, rook A to C1. We got castles by black. We got the move B4. We got pawn taking C4, or we got C4, pawn taking C4, and then rook taking C4. And this actually puts black it's not like black is losing, but black is definitely in like a questionable position in this particular situation, because you do have this queen hit, but you also have this pawn hit. And that is, something that Shevchenko definitely kind of gave to Wesley So. And Wesley So says, bro, I'll take it, son. So we got queen to b6, and then rook takes f4. And you can see that white is now up a pawn. It's not the end of the world. I mean, white just has not even a half a pawn's worth of an advantage. But, I mean, this is a little something, man. So, we got a rook f to e8. And we're trying to put a little bit of pressure on this queen on e1. So we got to try to figure out what are we going to do. So we do see rook to e4. We got bishop down to f6. And then we do see bishop to d3. And, we're basically asking black, what do you want to do? Do you want to trade? You want to try to move out the way? Like, how do you want to try to figure this out? So we see king going over to f8. Protecting that rook on d8 or on e8, because at the moment, if it wasn't for that move, you got rook takes e8, rook takes e8, queen takes e8, and that's just checkmate. So you don't want to end the game that way. So we got bishop back to f1. We got the move g6. Knight goes up to a5, just improving it. Even though you are putting it on the rim, you're doing a lot of good with it. You're attacking this bishop, and you're also threatening to come into c6 and maybe create a pass pawn, something like that. So, you're looking pretty good. So we do see rook a to c8. And we have to move a3. And I mean, everything is actually really solid for white. They've definitely made the right moves, and they have extended their advantage just a little bit. So they're just over half a pawn's worth of an advantage. But it's mostly due to this, extra pawn that it has. And I mean, you're going to be getting this knight into a better position at some point coming up in the future. So we got rook taking e4, queen taking e4, which you have to be very careful about trades. I always tell you guys, when you are down any little bit of material, you want to try to be very calculating when you're going into trades, because you could be helping your opponent out. But we do see rook down to c3. We got queen over to f4. We got bishop to e5. We got queen to h6 with check. And this is like a little bit of a critical position that we're in right now. There really is no better thing to do than to go bishop back to g7 and block this check. But you do allow another pawn to be taken. Now, if we back up, some of you guys are probably thinking like, okay, well, I mean, can I go king to g8? Can I go king to e8? Can I go king to e7? Like, can I just wiggle out of it that way? Well, you have a problem if you were to go ahead and do that. And it's like the same move in any of these positions. So we'll just take king to g8, for example. You see the move knight to c4, and you have a problem. Are you going to give up the rook up for this knight, or are you going to accept that your bishop is going to be taken, because you are hitting this queen as well? The problem is, after this, bishop is taking, it does move the pawn out of the way, and it makes this a completely passed pawn. So that is definitely not the way that you want to go about doing it. So that is why Shevchenko goes bishop back to g7, and he's holding a little bit. Like I said, I mean, you do allow this pawn to get given up. So you can see that, slowly Wesley So is, creating a little bit of larger advantage. And that is kind of like, how games go. I mean, you start off with a little bit of an advantage, and you kind of slowly build on it. And then, after some time, it becomes huge. We do see rook down to c1, putting the rook on the 7th. We got queen down to h4. We got the move g5. And this might look like a weird move, but you do have a check on f2 with the queen, if you can deflect the queen away somewhere. And so we do see queen taking g5. And Wesley So basically says, man, I'm not believing what you got going on, bro. I don't think that, I mean, queen takes f2 with check is even enough. It gets kind of dicey, though. Queen takes on f2 with check. We got king over to h1. And then we have bishop down to d4. And like you guys saw in the thumbnail, I mean, this is checkmate. So you kind of have to figure out, how are you going to defend this particular position? And we actually see the move bishop to d3, which is a really nice, in-between move. Well, it's not an in-between move. It's kind of a necessary move. But it does, throw a little attack on this rook right here. So we actually have reached a point in the game that, black has not only really an only move, but this is a move that Shevchenko does find in the game. So if you want to pause the video and try to see what move this is that he plays, go ahead and do so. Get a little hydration rolling, bro. All right, man. So I think a lot of people's initial impulse is going to be, I got to move this rook somewhere. Like, I mean, the rook has to go somewhere. Like, I don't want to get it taken because I'm already kind of down some. The problem is you actually can't move the rook. If If you found a nice little in-between move, you would be absolutely correct, and that move is bishop to e3. So one of the things that separates like certain players, like you know, average lower rated players from higher rated players is their ability to notice that a piece gets attacked, you know, register it, but then also think, is there anything else that I could try to do? You know, you're looking for Zwischenzug moves. You're looking for those in-between attacks, like maybe I could threaten checkmate, stuff like that. And that is exactly what Shevchenko does in this position. And he finds an you know, an in-between move to go on the counter attack to give himself some time to try to get, you know, his rook into some safety. And after we see bishop to e3, this does, of course, attack the queen on g5. So we do see queen to g3. And, I mean, you don't really too much want to go into a trade, but you kind of have to get rid of some heat. So queen takes g3, pawn takes g3, and then we do see rook up to c7 because, of course, the bishop was hanging. We got bishop to f5. We got bishop to a8. We see the move g4. King goes to g7. We see bishop back down to e4. We got rook up to c8. And this the thing I think that's really kind of crazy is the fact that, you know, white is up 2 entire pawns, but it's showing that they're only like half a pawn's worth of an advantage. So, you know, are the bishops really that strong in this position? I mean, that definitely adds a little bit to why, you know, white is not crazy winning the game, because black definitely has like some options with these bishops. We do see the move g3, trying to get the king into the game. We got rook down to c3. We see the move king to h2. Rook takes a3, and I mean, so now we have gotten a little bit of our material back. So, I mean, the game is a little bit closer than you think. We got knight down to c4. We got rook to b3, and not taking the bishop on e3, but taking the pawn on d6, because now we have just created a completely passed pawn, which is what we had been working on doing forever. So we got rook takes b4. We got rook down to f1. We're threatening this pawn over here. So the king goes up to g8. We see bishop down to g2. You know, he doesn't really want any checks, I guess. You know, that's the thing. So the rook does take on g4. We see rook over to e1 attacking this bishop. The bishop goes up to c5. But we have a really, really nice finish to the game. We see rook to e8 with check. The king goes down to h7. But he has actually moved into like a poisoned... There really wasn't a good move, like no matter what you did. But, I mean, it was kind of a poison square that he had to go to. And then we see the move knight to e4. And this is the position that Shevchenko resigns the game. Now, some of you probably are sitting here looking at this like, okay, like, why does he resign the game? Like, the pawns are even, the pieces are even. Like, I mean, it doesn't look like the game is just, like, really that bad. Well, it actually is really that bad if you're Shevchenko. And I will show you exactly why. So, the major problem that you have in a situation, like one of the major things that you have in a situation, the fact that this bishop is actually hanging right now. And this knight is actually being held by this bishop. So this rook doesn't even have to be here. So, I mean, if you want to next move, you can take the bishop completely off the board, and that's just an entire piece. But another important detail about the situation that you have to be paying attention to is the fact that if this knight lands on f6, it is forking this king and this rook. That's why I was saying that this was kind of a poison square for the king to go to. But you didn't really have a whole lot better, you know, even going down there. It's about the same for different reasons. So, like I said, it is in this position that Shevchenko resigns the game. If you want to go into a variation to see, like, kind of what might play out if you try to play, like, the absolute best, which this is really the only way to play. Bishop would be taking d5. Knight would go up to f6 with check. The king would go to g7. Knight would take on g4, bishop to e6, and then knight to e5. And you can see that, I mean, any variation that you really kind of go into, you're losing a piece. You do have a pawn, outside pass pawn over here. So, you know, I mean, this probably would be something that Magnus Carlsen would play as black and just say, hey, man, maybe I could try to put white in the bind. And maybe he might end up winning the game. I don't know. But Shevchenko says, I don't want any of that. So he does resign in this position here. So that is that game. I think it was really interesting. I mean, it was pretty even for like a lot of the game, you know, but it's just like you just had that little slight advantage and Wesley so just kept adding to it. And that's really all it takes, man. So like I said, that is round 5 game. And I appreciate you guys very much for stopping by. And I will see what we got going tomorrow. And I will see what game I'm going to hook up tomorrow. But I appreciate you guys very much. Meron salamat. I don't know how to say thank you in Romanian. Mulțumesc. I'm tripping. Man, what is it? It's a spasibi in Ukrainian. So I had to think there. But I appreciate you guys very much, and I'll see y'all next time.